Welcome to Healing the Hospital podcast. I'm your host, Rich Palaria. We would like to dedicate today's show to the victims of the fires in West Maui. As the relief and rebuilding efforts continue, we especially support the hospitals of that area, Malama Ikeola Health Center in the heart of West Maui, the Maui Memorial Medical Center, and the other Kaiser Permanente partners in Maui Lani and Upcountry Kula. And if you're tuning in via audio only to today's show, let me give you a visual. I'm wearing a floral Aloha shirt that I bought on my last trip to West Maui in late June, only a month before the major fires. I'm so grateful to have once again visited this treasure and to spend time in the Lahaina area. This last trip was so special for me as I was able to take my adult children along, and I'm grateful to have shared this special area with them before it was destroyed. Personally, I have many memories of this area going back to my first trips in the early 1980s and throughout the years, and such a fondness for the area's natural beauty, aquatic wildlife, its customs and culture, and its people. Our thoughts and prayers are with you all for the loss you have endured and for your rebuilding efforts. And if you'd like to donate to the relief efforts, you can visit directrelief.org or redcross.org. You can also make a donation by calling the Red Cross at 1-800-RED-CROSS. That's 1-800-733-2767. Okay, on today's show, we'll introduce you to a research professor on the cutting edge of healthcare economics who has researched some of the controversial and complex relationships between industry payments, hospital procurement, and physician preference in the medical device area. I will introduce Matt to you in detail in a moment, but listen to the titles of some of his research that he's completed alongside his capable partners and colleagues. The first one is called Lobbying Physicians, Payments from Industry and Hospital Procurement of Medical Devices. Medical device firm payments to physicians exceed what drug companies pay physicians, target surgical specialists. Transparency and negotiated prices, the value of information in hospital supplier bargaining, and price discrimination in bargaining, empirical evidence from medical devices, just to name a few. So this is going to be a lot of fun and very interesting, I think, if you follow this topic. With that, let's move to the interview portion of today's show. Today, I'm really excited about this one. I've got, I'm going to say an old friend of mine, just because we've been working together for a little while on something that he's very passionate about that is at the intersection of what we do here at Kermit. Dr. Matthew Grennan is an associate professor of economics and analysis and policy and the faculty co-director of the Robinson Life Science Business and Entrepreneurship Program at the Haas School of the University of California Berkeley. I knew I could get that out in one breath. I just say he works at Berkeley.
There you go.
He was previously on the faculty at Wharton, actually, and that's where I met him when he was working there. And he was with the Robinson School of Management in Toronto as well. Received his PhD from NYU Stern. He's also a faculty research fellow at the National Bureau of Economic Research and a senior fellow at the Leonard Davis Institute of Health Economics. Matt's research relates closely to his teaching in healthcare entrepreneurship, data analytics, and technology strategy. It also informs recent business and public policy debates regarding price transparency, one of my favorite topics. Relationships between physicians and industry, another big one. Regulation of new products and antitrust concerns about market power in the healthcare sector. Now you understand why Matt's here today. Matt even authored a case study using our company, Kermit, and has taught the case at Berkeley and other universities, even in the Mideast. Matt has received teaching awards from Wharton, Rotman in Toronto, and Poets and Quants. His research has been published in the top general interest journals in economics, management, and policy, including American Economic Review, Management Science, and Health Affairs. Matt's research has been funded through leading institutions such as the National Science Foundation and the National Institute for Healthcare Management. Matt, that was a mouthful, but I thought it was important because I really wanted to set up the academic side of what you do. You're the first hospital healer we've had on the show that comes from this side of the industry. So welcome, Matt. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much, Rich. It's great to be here with you.
So there's one question that I always ask our guests. I usually put it at the top because it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the conversation, and that is this. The name of the show is Healing the Hospital, and we feature people on the show that we call hospital healers. You are officially dubbed, now that you've been here, a hospital healer. So you can proudly wear that title
Thank you.
and see what doors it might open for you. I don't think too many. But the question is this. Hospital healers are people in our minds that when they see a problem or they see a situation, they really aren't satisfied with just leaving it alone. The status quo is not good enough. We see issues and we have to solve them for the betterment of everybody. And so I'm wondering, through everything that you've done and all the tremendous people you've worked with over the years and taught and been taught by, is there any one person that comes to mind for you who is a hospital healer, somebody who's maybe influenced you or really kind of changed the trajectory of your research and your professional career?
Yeah, I mean, this is an intimidating question to think about, right? I feel even a bit of a poser to be dubbed a hospital healer when there's so many amazing caregivers and administrators and others who have really gone above and beyond, especially these last couple of years through the pandemic. I don't know, for me, if it's been any one single person as much as, maybe to give a little bit of background. I was an undergraduate biomedical engineering major who kind of was always interested in healthcare technology, but then somehow stumbled into becoming a PhD economist who studied competition and markets. And the way I've made sense of that over the years has been to study healthcare markets and a lot, as you said, for medical devices and pharmaceuticals and the product side of things. And when I got into this sort of hospital purchasing and procurement world, and especially after I moved to Wharton and started working in the healthcare management group there, I just started being exposed to so many people who were working in this space and really just trying to figure out, how do you deliver better care, but still do it, in an affordable way. And so really to me, I'm always just impressed by the people who are trying to figure out how to solve that really thorny problem. And especially, this is clearly my biased view, but I think those who are trying to harness data and trying to figure out ways to use data to inform better decision making, to figure out how to make things more efficient and more affordable. So just many people who have kind of influenced and kind of continued to excite me about that over the years.
I can only imagine there's probably a great number of people that you've come in contact with who all have that passion, because one thing that I recall about my time at university and even interacting with academia thereafter, it's all about passion. I mean, nobody's getting paid enough to do this work, really. It's because there's a real love for it. There's a real love to getting to the truth. And that's one of the things I've really enjoyed about getting to know you, Matt. I was first exposed to you through your work that you did with Ashley Swanson. There was a piece that really kind of introduced me to these big ideas about transparency and all this. And I think it was Transparency and Negotiated Prices was the title of that. And the subtitle was The Value of Information in Hospital Supplier Bargaining. And that was back in 2016. So we launched Kermit in 2011, and I felt like we were just kind of a lone voice out there trying to espouse that there was this problem, a situation where surgeons pick, hospitals pay, and nobody really understands the interaction going on there, this asymmetrical buying thing that's going on. And I was so thrilled when I ran across that paper that you and Ashley did, because it was like, oh, there's somebody who speaks our language, somebody else gets it. And I said, we have to track Matt down at any cost and see if we can talk to him. And fortunately enough, we were able to do that pretty easily and found you, and you were gracious enough to at least take a phone call, and that kind of started kind of a whole journey for both of us, which has been really cool. So that was, at that time, I remember too, you had an association with the Harvard Business School as well.
Yeah, well, I remember you tracking me down very well, because I remember that first conversation. I think we probably stretched a half an hour call into an hour, and it all went by in a blink of an eye. We had so much to talk about. That was the link to Harvard Business School ended up being through a former student of Ashley's and mine from Wharton, Kyle Myers, who is still at Harvard Business School, who helped write that case study on Kermit with us. And that was, I think, really exciting for me because it brought together, as you say, that research world, thinking about negotiated prices, thinking about information and how it can affect procurement, but also thinking about some of the work I do more on the teaching end and thinking about data analytics and entrepreneurial strategy and how you take a company like Kermit that was doing super interesting work, bringing together new data, new analytics, but then doing the really tough job of figuring out how to sell that into kind of large legacy hospital systems. And that's just a thorny business problem. And so that was just a great project to work on, and I still love teaching that case study. Every year they teach it now in the data analytics core class actually that we have at Haas, and executive education classes that I'm involved with there as well.
So you're reminding me stuff that you explained to me in the early understanding of how all this works. There's a lot that goes into these papers and the research that you do, and that wasn't the only piece that you published with the one that you did with Ashley Swanson from 2016. There have been many others. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the other works you've created, maybe a little bit about how you come up with the ideas, maybe how you gain funding, how you go about the research process?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so maybe as I was saying before, I'm an economist who studies competition, and when it came time to think about where I wanted to study that, I'd always been a big fan of medical technology, and it turned out there wasn't a lot of people studying medical technology markets, as many as you would hope, I guess, given what I think is the importance of the area.
Sure.
But also that there turned out to be some really incredible data sources, like the data I used in my dissertation from Millennium Research Group, which is now a part of Decision Research Resources Group. And then ECRI Institute, who ended up supplying the data for the paper you mentioned that Ashley and I wrote. And that really, from the kind of economist, competition economist aspect of things, offered this really detailed data on negotiated prices. So this situation where prices were negotiated, which hadn't really been available before. And so economists really hadn't thought through how to model that, how to bring kind of data and theory together, and so that ended up being a really kind of cool piece of that whole research journey. Is that it helped contribute to this really nascent study of modeling negotiated prices, and others have contributed to that as well, and really that area has grown and matured to the point where models that we worked on 10 years ago now are kind of the status quo models that the FTC uses to analyze hospital mergers and negotiations between hospital systems and insurers, for example. So that was kind of one side of that, from the probably the part that's least correlated with the healing the hospital world, right? But I think what's kept me so engaged in it is that it also gave a chance to kind of add some value to thinking about public policy and business strategy around hospital purchasing, and this kind of complicated area where you have these new technologies being developed. Physicians are critical to developing those new technologies a lot of times. They're critical, obviously, to learning to deliver these new technologies, and as a result, end up having these close relationships with the manufacturers who typically actually commercialize these technologies. But at the same time, we're the kind of flip side of those relationships. You read articles in the popular press, and have academic medical centers who are kind of being very restrictive on those sort of interactions because they're worried about conflicts of interest, right? And so so there's been kind of this agenda that I've embarked on with a lot of co-authors, including Ashley, who you mentioned, and Kyle, who wrote the case study with us, and others like Alon Bergman, who's at Wharton now, just trying to unpack and think through some of these issues and some of the trade-offs, and really figure out how do we get policy and kind of managerial incentives right in this world where we really need these close relationships to create value and create good care, but we want to get the good stuff without getting the bad stuff.
Yep. It's a bit of a tightrope, I guess, that we all walk who have decided to participate in this category. And I'd agree with you too. Like, back in 2014, you were doing some research. 2016, the paper comes out, and you've done other things too. The data models that you use with ECRI. ECRI's a 100-plus-year-old organization. They've got a lot of data. This stuff was, I don't want to say taboo, but nobody really ventured in there to dig around in these relationships. It was kind of like, the surgeon is there to provide patient care, and we don't really want to mix patient outcomes with the cost of delivering that. They should have, carte blanche, maybe somebody would call it, to be able to do whatever they need to do for the patient. It wasn't really until the present era that we're in, especially the post-COVID era that we find ourselves in, where costs have become highly scrutinized and so many hospitals are posting operating losses, that we really need to look at this data. And I look at you and your cohort of researchers as journeymen who have just ventured into this area, doing the pioneering work and clearing the weeds for everybody. But it was very important foundational work that you've put together that now really has a lot of merit because we're all talking about this. And the Center for Medicare is very interested in this category too, with bundle payments and things. So,
yeah.
You had just touched on it a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about. You mentioned, you're a biomed engineer. That's where you kind of cut your teeth, and then that led to economics and then the research and the empirical study. But how did you make that transition? And do you miss the biomed stuff? I guess you're still doing a little bit of it in the research you're doing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I can really call myself ever having been a biomedical engineer. I was an undergraduate who studied biomedical engineering and worked in a few labs, a bioceramics lab once upon a time. And, I think it was a combination of, I was an undergraduate and probably not disciplined enough to be a real scientist, to be honest. Sitting in a lab and doing all the groundwork that it takes to do some of that lab work, as well as I was just really interested in kind of business and policy problems and searching for a way to take some of the analytical thinking that you learn as an engineer and think harder about problems that were kind of more in the social world, I guess, than the physical world. And that's what led me to economics. And so I guess I've just been kind of cheating ever since then in doing the stuff I wanted to do in economics, but still double dipping and getting to do it in this medical technology space that I think is so interesting and important. So I really I feel like I'm just fortunate to be doing the economics that I really love to do in this field where I get to kind of be a bit of an observer along the way and teaching classes in medtech strategy and healthcare entrepreneurship and healthcare commercialization.
Yeah, it's really cool that you find yourself at the intersection of your passion and your gifting, basically, that you get to participate in that every single day. It's you said fortunate. I think the same way. It's rare that people actually get to experience that. So for however long it lasts, I hope you get to stay there and you're thriving. You talked a little bit about the previous work. What new work? What are you working on now that maybe that's kind of under wraps, but you can at least tell us a little bit about to kind of get us excited about what might be coming next for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, so some work that's I guess not under wraps, but still in the trying to kind of cross all the T's and dot all the I's, really at this intersection of kind of relationships and purchasing. So, when you might read in an article in, say, the New York Times or something like that, that's an expose on a surgeon behaving badly or something, right? Who's been putting pacemakers in everybody who walks through the door or something. and then they might mention at some point in that article, oh, and they have some consulting agreement with one of the device makers or something, and either directly or indirectly insinuating that might be there might be some relationship there. I'd read articles like that, and I just think, like, how common is this, right? Or another example in the pharmaceutical space that we've read about over the last decade would be opioids, right? So some companies who are promoting opioids, it's gone through court cases and people are in jail for having things like sham speaker programs where they were paying doctors a lot of money for consulting and speaking fees, but the doctors weren't doing anything besides prescribing opioids, right? Yep. And so you read really discouraging cases like that, and you wonder, like, how representative is this of what's going on out there, right? These are the sort of problems that make academic medical centers want to shut the door to manufacturers, and in some states pass restrictive policies, et cetera. But we know there are a lot of legitimate reasons for these interactions too, right? Like you have to have some way to pass on new information about technologies to busy docs or docs who want to be trained and so on, and who is better both qualified and